You'll never find anyone better than me." That's what Bud Larkin told Ella Mays when he walked away, leaving her broken in a coffee shop with cold lattes and colder promises. He was so sure, so confident, so completely wrong. Because 6 months later, when he showed up drunk at her gates demanding answers, he discovered that better didn't even begin to cover it. Ella hadn't just moved on, she'd ascended to a throne he didn't even know existed. She hadn't just found love, she'd become royalty in a world of fangs and ancient magic. And the man mocking her for being still single? He was about to learn that his ex-girlfriend wasn't dating up. She'd married a king. The Alpha King. The most powerful werewolf in the Eastern Kingdoms. This is the story of how a man's cruelty became a woman's coronation, and how karma has claws sharper than any insult he ever threw. Chapter 1. The Rejection. The coffee shop smelled like cinnamon and broken promises. Ella Mays sat across from Bud Larkin in their usual corner booth, the one with the chip table and the wobbly leg that he'd promised to report to management for 2 years but never did. Just like he'd promised her forever, and never meant that either. "You're being dramatic," Bud said, not even looking up from his phone. His thumb scrolled endlessly through whatever was more important than this conversation. More important than her. "I'm not breaking up with you. I just think we need space." Space. That word had become his favorite lately. Space from her texts, space from her calls, space from actually showing up when he said he would. Ella's hands trembled around her untouched latte. "Bud, we've been together for 3 years. 3 years. And you've been needing space for the last 6 months. Just tell me the truth, please." He finally looked up, and the indifference in his dark eyes cut deeper than anger ever could. "Fine. You want the truth? You're clingy, Ella. You're always waiting for me, always available, always there. It's suffocating. I need someone who has their own life, their own friends. Someone who doesn't make me feel guilty for wanting to breathe." The words hit her like physical blows, clingy, suffocating. All because she'd rearranged her work schedule to see him. All because she'd skipped girls' nights to be available when he finally decided to call. All because she'd loved him with everything she had. "I have my own life," she whispered. But even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. Somewhere between year 1 and year 3, she'd let her friendships fade. She'd stopped going to book club. She'd turned down promotions that would have required evening classes, because Bud said he needed her free on weeknights. She'd shrunk herself down to fit into the small space he'd allotted for her in his life. "No, you don't." Bud leaned back, and something cruel flickered across his handsome face. "That's the problem. You built your whole world around me, and I never asked you to do that. That's on you." Ella felt something crack inside her chest. Something that had been fracturing for months but was finally splitting completely. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying we're done. I can't do this anymore. You deserve someone who wants what you want. And that's not me." He stood up, throwing a $10 bill on the table, not even enough to cover both their drinks. He'd stuck her with the bill, just like he'd stuck her with all the emotional labor of their relationship. "Bud, wait." She reached for his hand, hating herself for it, but unable to stop. He pulled away like her touch burned him. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. It's over, Ella. Move on." And then he was gone, leaving her sitting in that coffee shop with cold coffee and the weight of 3 wasted years pressing down on her shoulders. Ella didn't cry. Not then. She paid the bill, walked to her car, drove home to her tiny apartment, and collapsed on her bed. Only then did she let the tears come, great heaving sobs that tore through her body and left her gasping for air. She cried for the girl who'd given up pieces of herself thinking love required sacrifice. She cried for the time she'd never get back. She cried for the future she'd imagined that would never exist. But mostly, she cried because part of her still loved him. Still wanted him to call and say it was all a mistake. Still wanted to hear that she was enough. That was the worst part. Even after everything, she was still waiting for him to choose her. 3 months later, Ella was finally starting to feel like herself again. She'd reconnected with her best friend Rita, who'd welcomed her back with open arms and a bottle of wine, saying, "About damn time you remembered you had a life before that man." She'd started attending a weekly yoga class. She'd even accepted that promotion at the marketing firm where she worked, the one that came with evening strategy sessions and occasional weekend seminars. Her apartment was small but entirely hers. No more coordinating schedules. No more waiting by the phone. No more twisting herself into shapes that fit someone else's requirements. She was healing, slowly, painfully, but healing nonetheless. That's when Rita convinced her to try the new farmer's market that had opened downtown. Fresh air, cute vegetables, possibly cute farmers, Rita said, linking their arms together as they walked through the rows of vendors. What's not to love? Ella laughed, a real laugh that felt foreign and wonderful. I'm not looking for cute farmers. I'm looking for cute tomatoes. For my pasta sauce. You can look for both. I believe in your multitasking abilities. They were debating the merits of heirloom versus cherry tomatoes when Ella felt that prickle on the back of her neck that meant someone was watching her. She turned, scanning the crowd, and her breath caught. He was tall, easily 6'3", with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar, and eyes so blue they looked like chips of Arctic ice. He wore a simple black t-shirt and jeans, but there was something about the way he carried himself that made everyone else fade into background noise. Power radiated from him like heat from pavement in summer, and he was staring directly at her. Ella quickly looked away, her heart hammering. Rita, don't look now, but there's a guy, the gorgeous one at 9 o'clock who looks like he wants to eat you for breakfast. Yeah, I see him. Oh my God, Ella. He's coming over here. What? No, I'm not ready for. Too late. Smile and pretend you're a functioning human being. The man stopped in front of their tomato stall. But he wasn't looking at the produce. His eyes, those impossibly blue eyes, were locked on Ella's face with an intensity that made her skin flush. Excuse me, he said, and his voice was deep and rough, like whiskey and smoke. I don't mean to interrupt, but I had to come over here. Ella's tongue felt thick in her mouth. Oh, I'm Ryan, he said, extending his hand. Ryan Reese. And I know this is going to sound insane, but I feel like I've been looking for you my entire life. Rita made a small squeaking sound beside her. Ella took his hand, and the moment their skin touched, something electric shot up her arm. Ryan's eyes widened, and she knew he felt it too, that inexplicable connection that made no logical sense but felt more real than anything she'd ever experienced. Ella, she managed. Ella Mays. Ella. He said her name like he was tasting it, savoring it. Would you let me buy you a coffee? Right now? I know it's forward, but I have this feeling that if I let you walk away, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Every logical part of Ella's brain screamed warnings. She'd just gotten out of a relationship. She didn't know this man. This was too fast, too intense, too much. But her heart, her battered, bruised heart that had been slowly mending, whispered something different. It whispered yes. Okay, she heard herself say. Coffee sounds nice. Ryan's smile transformed his entire face, and Ella felt her world tilt on its axis. Rita grabbed her arm. Are you sure about this? You just met him. I'm sure, Ella said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. I'll text you later. As she walked away with Ryan Reese, this stranger who somehow didn't feel like a stranger at all. Ella had no idea that she'd just met the Alpha King of the Eastern Kingdoms. She had no idea that the connection she felt was a mate bond, something sacred and unbreakable in the werewolf world she didn't even know existed. All she knew was that for the first time in months, she felt alive. Chapter 2. The Whirlwind. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a midnight walk through the city park where the streetlights cast golden pools on the pathway, and Ryan told her things he'd never told another soul. I've been looking for something my whole life, he said, his hand warm around hers as they walked. And I never knew what it was, until I saw you at that market. Ella should have been scared by the intensity. 3 months ago, she would have run from someone who came on this strong, this fast. But with Ryan, everything felt different. Natural. Like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. Tell me about your family, she said, wanting to know everything about this man who'd crashed into her life like a comet. Ryan's jaw tightened. Complicated. My father died when I was young. My mother followed a year later. I was raised by, let's call them business associates, people who had expectations about who I should be, what I should want. And what do you want? He stopped walking and turned to face her, cupping her face in his hands with a gentleness that made her breath catch. This. You. Something real in a world full of politics and obligations. Something that's mine and not part of some ancient tradition or duty. When he kissed her, Ella felt the ground shift beneath her feet. This wasn't like kissing Bud, desperate attempts to convince herself she felt something that wasn't there. This was fire and lightning and coming alive after being asleep for years. "Stay with me tonight," Ryan whispered against her lips. "Just talk. I'm not ready to let you go yet." Ella knew she should say no. Knew she should take things slow, protect her healing heart, be sensible. But sensible had gotten her nowhere except alone and heartbroken. "Okay," she breathed. "Just talk." They went back to his penthouse apartment, and that should have been her first clue that Ryan Reese was more than he appeared. The building had a doorman who practically bowed when Ryan walked past. The elevator required a keycard for the top floor. The apartment itself was bigger than most houses, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. "What exactly do you do?" Ella asked, walking slowly through the massive living room. "I run a family business, import-export, mostly. Some real estate holdings. It's boring corporate stuff." He said it casually, but there was something in his voice that told her he was holding back. "But I don't want to talk about work. Tell me about you. What do you dream about when you let yourself dream?" And so, Ella told him. About her mother who died of cancer when she was 22. About the career she'd put on hold for a man who never appreciated the sacrifice. About the book she'd always wanted to write but never had the courage to start. "Why not start now?" Ryan asked. They were sitting on his couch, Ella curled against his side like she'd been doing it for years instead of hours. "Because I'm 27 and I wasted 3 years and I'm starting over from scratch. Because I'm scared. Because what if I fail? What if you succeed?" Ryan tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "What if you're capable of so much more than anyone ever told you? What if the only thing holding you back is fear?" Ella felt tears prick her eyes. When had anyone ever believed in her like this? When had anyone ever looked at her like she was capable of greatness instead of just convenient? "I don't even know you," she whispered. "This is crazy. We just met this afternoon." "I know. And yet it feels like I've known you forever, doesn't it?" It did. God help her, it did. Ella stayed the night, and the next night, and the night after that. Within 2 weeks, she'd moved half her closet into his penthouse. Within a month, she couldn't remember what her life had been like before Ryan Reese walked into it. He was attentive in ways Bud never had been. He remembered that she liked her coffee with 2 sugars and oat milk. He bought her favorite flowers, white roses, just because. He listened when she talked about her day, actually listened, asking questions and remembering details. But there were also things that didn't quite add up. The phone calls he took in another room, speaking in a language she didn't recognize. The men in dark suits who sometimes waited in the lobby, their eyes too watchful, too alert. The way service staff treated him not just with respect, but with something that looked almost like fear. "Ryan," she asked one night as they lay tangled together in his massive bed, "are you in some kind of trouble?" He went very still. "What makes you ask that?" "The security, the secretive phone calls, the way people look at you sometimes." She propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face in the moonlight streaming through the windows. "I'm not stupid. Something's going on." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with something that sounded like regret. "I'm not in trouble. But my life is complicated. There are things about me, about my world, that you don't know. Things I haven't told you, because once I do, everything changes." Ella's heart began to pound. "Are you married?" "No." "Criminal?" "No." "Then what? What could be so terrible that you can't tell me?" Ryan sat up, running his hands through his hair, in a gesture she'd come to recognize meant he was wrestling with something difficult. "If I tell you, you'll think I'm insane, and if you don't think I'm insane, you'll run. And I can't. Ella, I can't lose you. Not now. Not when I've finally found you." She reached for his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "I'm not going to run. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Promise me something first." His eyes were intense, almost desperate. "Promise me that no matter what I tell you, you'll let me explain everything before you make any decisions." "I promise." Ryan took a deep breath, and Ella watched his entire body tense like he was preparing for battle. "Ella, there are things in this world that most humans don't know about, things that exist in the shadows, that have existed for thousands of years. And I'm not entirely human. Ella blinked. What? I'm a werewolf. An alpha werewolf. And not just any alpha, I'm the alpha king of the Eastern Kingdoms. I rule over 23 packs from here to the Atlantic coast. And you, Ella Mays, are my fated mate. The bond you felt when we first touched. That wasn't just attraction, that was destiny recognizing itself. The room spun. Ella pulled her hand away, scrambling back against the headboard. This isn't funny. I know it sounds insane. Werewolves aren't real, Ryan. They're stories. Myths. Let me show you. Before she could protest, Ryan stood up and walked to the center of the room. Don't be afraid. I would never hurt you. And then he changed. Ella watched in horror and fascination as Ryan's body shifted and reformed. His bones cracked and realigned. Fur sprouted from his skin, thick and dark and silver-tipped. His face elongated into a muzzle with fangs that could tear through steel. Within seconds, a massive wolf stood where Ryan had been easily the size of a small horse, with those same piercing blue eyes staring at her with unmistakable intelligence. Ella's scream died in her throat. She couldn't scream, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what she was seeing. The wolf Ryan took a careful step toward her, moving slowly, cautiously. When Ella didn't run, he came closer, until his massive head was inches from her trembling hand. She should run. She should call the police. She should do literally anything except reach out and touch the creature that couldn't possibly exist. But she did. She reached out with shaking fingers and buried them in his fur. It was softer than she expected, warm, real. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God. Ryan shifted back, the transformation somehow even more disturbing in reverse, until he was kneeling naked in front of her, watching her face with an expression that broke her heart. Say something, he pleaded. Please, Ella, say something. I need, her voice cracked. I need a minute. I need to think. I don't. Take all the time you need. I'll sleep on the couch. Or I can leave if you want. Whatever you need. He reached for a blanket, wrapping it around himself, and Ella could see his hands shaking. He was scared. This powerful, impossible being was terrified that she would leave him. Don't go, Ella heard herself say. Just give me tonight to process this. Please. Ryan nodded, relief flooding his features. Anything. Whatever you need. He left her alone in his bedroom, and Ella sat there in the dark, trying to reconcile everything she thought she knew about the world with what she'd just witnessed. Werewolves were real. Magic was real. And she was apparently destined to be with their king. What the hell had her life become? Chapter 3. Acceptance and Secrets. Ella didn't sleep that night. She sat cross-legged on Ryan's massive bed, her mind racing through everything she thought she knew about reality and watching it crumble like sand. Werewolves, alphas, fated mates, kingdoms hidden inside the human world. It should have been impossible. It should have been a hallucination, a breakdown, some kind of elaborate prank, but she'd felt his fur beneath her fingers. She'd watched bones reshape and reform. She'd looked into those wolf eyes and seen Ryan staring back at her. As dawn painted the sky pink and gold, Ella finally made her decision. She found Ryan on the couch, still awake, dark circles under his eyes. He looked up when she entered, and the naked hope in his expression nearly broke her. I'm not running, Ella said quietly. Ryan was on his feet in an instant. You're not? I'm terrified. I don't understand any of this. But I also can't deny what I saw, and I can't deny what I feel when I'm with you. She walked toward him, and he met her halfway, pulling her into his arms like she was air and he'd been drowning. So you're going to explain everything. And I mean everything. And then we'll figure out what happens next. Thank you, Ryan breathed into her hair. God, Ella, thank you for not running. Over the next 2 weeks, Ryan taught Ella about his world. He explained that werewolves had existed alongside humans for millennia, hidden in plain sight, that they aged slower, healed faster, and were bound by pack structures more ancient than most human civilizations. That the Alpha King wasn't just a title, it was a responsibility that carried the weight of thousands of lives. I was born into this, Ryan explained one evening as they sat on his balcony, the city sprawling below them. My father was Alpha King before me. When he died, I was only 19. Too young, too angry, to everything. But the pack doesn't care about ready. The crown passes whether you want it or not. That's why you said people had expectations about who you should be, Ella realized. Exactly. There are council members who've been waiting for me to choose a mate from one of the noble bloodlines, political alliances that would strengthen our position. They've been parading eligible she-wolves in front of me for 8 years. His hand found hers, squeezing gently. But I never felt anything, not until you. Ella absorbed this, her mind working through the implications. So what happens now? If I'm your mate, what does that mean? Ryan's expression grew serious. It means you're mine, and I'm yours in every way that matters. The bond between fated mates is sacred, it's soul deep. But it also means danger. Ella, my world isn't safe. There are rival packs, political enemies, wolves who would use you to get to me. If they knew you existed, if they knew you were human and unbonded. Unbonded. The mate bond isn't complete until we perform the mating ceremony. It's a ritual that binds our souls together, gives you protection under pack law, and makes you Luna Queen of the Eastern Kingdoms. He cupped her face, his thumb stroking her cheeks. But I won't push you. This has to be your choice. I'll wait as long as you need. Ella's heart pounded. And if I say yes? If I want to complete the bond? The hope that flared in Ryan's eyes was almost painful to witness. Then, we do it properly. We perform the ceremony. I mark you as mine, and you become part of my world permanently. There's no going back from it, Ella. Once we're bonded for life. For life, Ella repeated softly. 3 months ago, she'd been begging Bud Larkin for scraps of affection. Now, she was contemplating binding her soul to a werewolf king for eternity. It should have felt rushed, insane, too much, too fast. But when she looked at Ryan, really looked at him, she saw her future. She saw strength and tenderness, and a love so fierce it made her breathless. She saw a man who'd waited his entire life for her, and would wait 1,000 more years if she asked. I want to do it, she said. The ceremony. The bond. All of it. Ryan went very still. Ella, you don't have to decide right now. I'm not deciding right now. I decided the moment you told me I was your mate. I decided when you showed me what you were, and trusted me not to run. I decided when I realized that for the first time in my life, someone sees me, really sees me, and thinks I'm enough exactly as I am. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she was smiling. So yes, Ryan Reese. I want to be your mate. I want to be your Luna. I want all of it. Ryan kissed her like a man possessed, like she was oxygen and hope and home all wrapped into one impossible package. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. We'll do it privately, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Just us and a witness. I'll handle the political fallout with the council later. Right now, all that matters is making sure you're protected. Making sure everyone knows you're mine. The ceremony happened 3 days later in a clearing deep in the forest, under a full moon that hung heavy and silver in the night sky. The witness was a woman named Judith, Ryan's second in command, a tall she-wolf with sharp features and sharper eyes who'd looked at Ella with open skepticism until Ryan growled low in his throat and she'd back down immediately. The bond ceremony is simple, Judith explained, her tone professional despite her obvious disapproval. You exchange vows. Alpha King marks her, and the bond snaps into place. After that, she's Luna Queen whether the council likes it or not. Ryan shot her a warning look. Thank you, Judith. That will be all. When they were alone as they could be with Judith standing at a respectful distance, Ryan took both of Ella's hands in his. I, Ryan Reese, Alpha King of the Eastern Kingdoms, claim you as my mate before the moon and the old laws, he said, his voice carrying through the clearing. I vow to protect you with my life, to honor you above all others, to stand by your side through darkness and light. My strength is your strength, my kingdom is your kingdom. My heart is yours until the stars burn out, and the world turns to dust. Ella's hands trembled, but her voice was steady when she spoke the words he'd taught her. I, Ella Mays, accept your claim, and offer mine in return. I vow to stand with you, to trust in our bond, to be the Luna your pack deserves. My heart is yours, my soul is yours, and I choose you freely, now and forever." The moment the words left her lips, Ella felt something shift in the air. A presence, ancient and powerful, that seemed to acknowledge what they'd just done. Ryan's eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to the surface. "This will hurt for a moment," he warned. "But then you'll feel everything. You'll feel me, Ella. You'll feel our bond like a living thing between us." "I'm ready." Ryan's canines extended, and before Ella could second-guess her decision, he bit down on the junction between her neck and shoulder, the mating mark that would brand her as his for the rest of their lives. The pain was sharp and immediate, but it was nothing compared to what came after. Power flooded through her. Ryan's power, ancient and overwhelming. She felt his wolf, massive and protective, wrapping around her consciousness like a shield. She felt his emotions, love and relief and fierce possessive joy, as clearly as if they were her own. And underneath it all, she felt the bond itself. A golden thread, connecting their souls. Unbreakable and eternal. When Ryan pulled back, his lips were stained with her blood, but his eyes were human again and filled with wonder. "Can you feel it?" "Yes," Ella breathed, touching the mark on her neck. It burned, but it also sang with power. "I can feel you. I can feel everything. You're mine now," Ryan whispered, pulling her close. "My mate, my Luna. And nothing in this world or any other can change that." Ella buried her face in his chest, feeling his heartbeat sync with hers, two hearts, one rhythm, bound forever by magic and choice and love. She'd gone from broken and discarded to Luna, queen of the most powerful werewolf pack in the Eastern Kingdoms, and she'd done it in secret. Because they both knew the moment Ryan's council discovered he'd made it a human, the political shitstorm would be catastrophic. But for now, in this moment, with the moon blessing them from above and the forest bearing witness, Ella didn't care about politics or power or what came next. She was home. They kept the mating secret for 2 months. In public, Ella was simply Ryan's girlfriend, a human he was dating, nothing serious, nothing permanent. She moved through his world like a ghost, attending occasional pack functions where wolves looked at her with barely concealed disdain, whispering about the Alpha King's human phase and how he'd eventually come to his senses. But in private, she was his Luna. She bore his mark hidden beneath high-necked blouses. She felt him through the bond whenever they were apart, his emotions, his presence, a constant golden warmth in the back of her mind. Ryan taught her pack politics, showed her how to navigate the treacherous waters of wolf hierarchy. Judith eventually warmed to her, grudgingly admitting that Ella was smarter than expected for a human, which was apparently high praise. Ella started writing her book, started attending evening classes for her promotion, started building a life that was hers and Ryan's together, hidden from a world that wouldn't understand. She should have known it couldn't last forever. She should have known that eventually, someone from her old life would crash into her new one. She just didn't expect it to be Bud Larkin, walking into the coffee shop where she was working on her laptop, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on her with unmistakable recognition. And she definitely didn't expect the cruel smile that spread across his face when he saw her sitting alone. "Well, well," Bud said, sliding uninvited into the seat across from her. "If it isn't Ella Mays. Long time no see." Chapter 4. The Mockery. Ella's first instinct was to run, to grab her laptop and leave before Bud could say another word, but she'd spent months learning to navigate pack politics, to face down wolves who could tear her apart with their bare hands. She wasn't the same girl who'd begged for scraps of his attention. "Bud," she said coolly, not closing her laptop, "what do you want?" He looked good. She hated that she noticed. His hair was styled differently, and he'd clearly been working out. There was a woman hovering near the counter, watching them with poorly concealed interest. Probably his new girlfriend, the one who was less clingy. "I was in the neighborhood and saw you through the window. Thought I'd say hi." His eyes swept over her, assessing. "You look different. Did you cut your hair?" 5 months ago. Right after you destroyed me," she didn't add. "I really need to get back to work, so." "Still at that marketing firm?" He leaned back, his posture screaming casual confidence. "I heard through the grapevine you finally took that promotion. Good for you. Glad you're finally focusing on your career instead of, obsessing over a relationship." The jab landed exactly where he intended it. Ella felt heat rise to her cheeks, but she kept her voice level. Is there a point to this conversation? Just making small talk. We were together for 3 years, Ella. That doesn't just disappear. He glanced at her left hand bare. Because she and Ryan had agreed to keep even the appearance of commitment hidden. Until they were ready to face the council. No ring, I see. Still single? There it was. The real reason he'd come over. Not to say hi, not to check on her, to gloat. My relationship status isn't your business anymore, Ella said, proud of how steady her voice sounded. So that's a yes. Bud's smile widened, and it was the same smile he'd worn when he told her she was suffocating. You know, I wondered if you'd moved on. Rita mentioned you were seeing someone, but I guess that didn't work out either. It's been, 5 months since we broke up, and you still haven't found anyone? Ella's fingers tightened on her laptop. Through the bond, she felt Ryan's presence. A warm, protective pulse at the back of her mind. He was in a meeting across town, but he could feel her distress through their connection. Everything okay? His voice whispered in her mind. The bond allowed them to communicate telepathically when emotions ran high. My ex just showed up, she thought back. I'm handling it. Do you need me there? No. I can deal with him myself. I'm doing fine, Ella said aloud, meeting Bud's eyes. Better than fine, actually. Sure you are. He leaned forward, and there was something cruel in his expression that she'd never noticed when they were together. Or maybe she'd just been too desperate to see it. Look, Ella, I'm not trying to be mean, but maybe this is a good wake-up call, you know? Maybe you need to figure out why you can't keep a man interested before you jump into another relationship. The clinginess thing. That's something you should probably work on. The woman at the counter, definitely his girlfriend, was watching now, with undisguised pity. Poor Ella. Can't keep a boyfriend. Too needy. Too much. Ella felt something inside her snap. Not the broken, desperate snap from 5 months ago. This was different. This was the snap of someone who'd spent months learning what real love looked like, and refusing to accept anything less. You're right, she said quietly, and Bud blinked in surprise. I did need to figure some things out. I needed to figure out why I wasted 3 years on someone who made me feel small. Why I twisted myself into knots trying to fit into a space that was never meant for me. Why I thought begging for basic respect was normal in a relationship. Bud's smile faltered. Ella, I'm not finished. Her voice was still quiet, but there was steel in it now. You broke up with me because I was clingy, because I made myself available for you, because I loved you enough to rearrange my entire life. And you're right, that was my mistake. Not because I was wrong to offer that love, but because I offered it to someone who didn't deserve it. Jesus, you're still hung up on me. Bud's face flushed red. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't let go. You can't move on. That's why you're still single. I'm not single. The words came out before Ella could stop them. Bud froze, his mouth still open on whatever insult he'd been about to hurl. What? I'm not single, Ella repeated, and this time there was satisfaction in her voice. I'm in a relationship. Have been for months. We're just private about it. Bud's eyes narrowed. Who? That guy Rita mentioned? The one from the farmer's market? He laughed a sharp, ugly sound. Come on, Ella. If you were really dating someone, you'd be all over social media with it. You'd be introducing him to everyone. That's your thing, remember? Being all in all the time? Maybe I learned that some things are worth keeping private. That not everything needs to be performed for an audience. Ella stood, closing her laptop with a decisive snap. Maybe I found someone who doesn't treat my love like it's a burden. Someone who sees my devotion as a gift, instead of a problem. Sure you did. Bud stood too, and now he just looked angry. You know what? Fine. You're dating some imaginary boyfriend. Good for you. But we both know the truth, Ella. You're going to end up alone because you're too much. Too needy. Ella? The voice that cut through Bud's tirade was deep and commanding and unmistakably familiar. Ella turned to see Ryan Reese standing in the doorway of the coffee shop, dressed in the black suit he'd worn to his council meeting, and radiating the kind of power that made everyone in the room instinctively straighten. His eyes were locked on her face, concern and rage warring in their blue depths. Is everything all right? Ella felt her heart stutter. Ryan wasn't supposed to be here. They'd agreed to keep their relationship low profile until they were ready to deal with the pack politics. But he'd felt her distress through the bond and come anyway, council meeting be damned. I'm fine, she said, even as relief flooded through her, just running into an old friend. Ryan's gaze shifted to Bud, and there was something predatory in the look, something that made Bud take an involuntary step backward. I don't think you were finished with your meeting. It ended early. Ryan crossed the coffee shop in 3 long strides and wrapped an arm around Ella's waist, pulling her against his side in a gesture that was unmistakably possessive. Sweetheart, are you ready to go? We have dinner reservations in an hour. The endearment made Ella's breath catch. Ryan never called her that in public. Never showed this level of casual affection where other wolves might see. This was him throwing caution to the wind, marking his territory, making a statement. Bud was staring at Ryan with his mouth slightly open. This is your boyfriend? Fiancé, actually, Ryan said smoothly, and Ella's heart nearly stopped. They'd never discussed marriage, the mate bond was more permanent than any human ceremony, but Ryan was clearly improvising. We've been keeping it quiet, but yes. Ella and I are engaged. The lie, if it could even be called a lie when they were already bound for life, hung in the air between them. Bud's face cycled through several expressions: shock, disbelief, and finally, something that looked suspiciously like envy. His eyes swept over Ryan, taking in the expensive suit, the confident posture, the way he held Ella like she was something precious. Engaged, Bud repeated flatly. You've been together for what, 5 months, and you're engaged? When you know, Ryan said, his tone brooking no argument. Ella is remarkable. I'm just lucky, she said yes. The way he said it, like Ella was the prize and he was the one who'd won the lottery, made her eyes sting with tears. This was what love looked like. Not someone telling you to take up less space, but someone proudly making room for you in their life. I need to get Ella home, Ryan continued, his arm tightening around her waist. But it was enlightening to meet you. The pause before enlightening carried enough weight to flatten mountains. Bud's jaw clenched. Yeah. Sure. Congratulations, I guess. As Ryan steered Ella toward the door, she heard Bud's girlfriend whisper, That's her ex? God, what an idiot. Outside, in the cool evening air, Ella finally let herself breathe. You came. Of course I came. I felt you through the bond. You were upset. Ryan cupped her face, his thumbs stroking her cheeks. Who was that? Bud Larkin. My ex. Understanding flashed across Ryan's features. The one who told you that you were too much? That you were clingy? Yeah. He wanted to gloat about me being single. Wanted to make sure I knew I was still alone and failing at life. Ella laughed, but it came out shaky. You really didn't have to say we were engaged. We agreed to keep things quiet. Screw quiet, Ryan said fiercely. I'm tired of pretending you're not the most important thing in my world. I'm tired of hiding what we are. And I'm definitely not letting some jackass make you feel small when you're the strongest person I know. The council can deal with it. I'm Alpha King. And you're my mate. My Luna. If they have a problem with that, they can challenge me for the position. His eyes flashed gold for a moment, his wolf rising to the surface. But they won't, because they know I'd tear apart anyone who tried to take you from me. Ella rose on her toes and kissed him, pouring 5 months of hidden love and gratitude into the gesture. When they finally broke apart, she was smiling. So we're engaged now? We're mated, bonded for life. Compared to that, engaged is actually downgrading. Ryan grinned. But if you want a human ceremony too, if you want the white dress and the party and all of it, Ella, I'll give you anything you want. I just want you, she said softly. Everything else is just window dressing. You have me. Forever. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, right over the spot where she could feel his presence through their bond. Now, let's go home. I want to hear every word that bastard said, so I can decide whether or not to ruin his life. Ryan. I'm kidding, mostly. As they walked to his car, his hand firmly clasped around hers. No more hiding. Ella felt lighter than she had in months. Bud had tried to make her feel small, tried to confirm all her worst fears about being too much, too needy, too desperate. But he'd failed. Because Ella finally understood what Ryan had been telling her since the day they met. She wasn't too much. She'd just been offering all that love and devotion to someone too small to appreciate it. And now she was Luna Queen to the most powerful alpha in the Eastern Kingdoms, even if Bud Larkin had no idea what that meant. She couldn't wait for the day he found out. Chapter 5. Standing before wolves. The council meeting 3 days later was, predictably, a disaster. Ella sat beside Ryan at the head of a massive oak table, surrounded by 12 of the most powerful wolves in the Eastern Kingdoms. The council chambers were in the basement of Ryan's building, a space that looked medieval, despite the modern city above it, all stone walls and torches and an atmosphere thick with ancient power. "You claimed a human," said Robert Ellison, a silver-haired alpha in his 60s, who controlled 3 packs in the Northern Territories. His voice dripped with disdain. "Without consulting the council, without considering bloodlines, without any regard for tradition, I claimed my fated mate." Ryan corrected, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of threat. "The bond chose her. I had no more control over it than you had over breathing this morning." "Fated mates are myths," said another council member, Adam Harmon, younger but no less hostile. "Stories we tell pups to make them believe in destiny. The reality is that you chose a human over dozens of suitable she-wolves who could have strengthened our alliances." "Careful." Ryan's voice dropped to a growl that raised the hair on Ella's arms. "You're talking about my Luna, my mate. Choose your next words very carefully." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ella felt power rolling off Ryan in waves, the kind of dominance that reminded everyone present exactly why he was Alpha King and they were not. Judith, who stood behind Ryan's chair as his second, cleared her throat. "The bond is complete. The mark is visible. By our oldest laws, what's done is done. The council's approval is not required for an alpha to claim his mate, but it is required for a human to become Luna Queen." Robert shot back. "She has no wolf, no pack blood, no understanding of our ways. How can she rule beside him when she's barely been part of our world for 6 months?" All eyes turned to Ella. She felt their judgment like physical weight, pressing down on her shoulders. These were wolves who'd lived for decades, some for centuries. They'd seen empires rise and fall. And here she was, a 27-year-old human who'd spent most of her life in marketing and bad relationships. But she'd also spent the last 5 months learning to navigate pack politics from the most powerful alpha alive. She'd studied their history, their customs, their laws, and she'd learned that showing weakness to wolves was the fastest way to lose their respect. "You're right," Ella said, and the surprise on their faces was almost comical. "I don't have a wolf. I don't have pack blood. I'm human, and I'll always be human. But I have something none of your suitable she-wolves have." "And what's that?" Adam sneered. "I have Ryan's complete loyalty, his trust, his love. And I have the wisdom to know that being Luna isn't about bloodlines or traditions, it's about serving the pack alongside him. It's about making decisions that protect our people, even when those decisions are difficult." She met each council member's eyes in turn, refusing to back down. "You can question my qualifications, you can doubt my ability, but you cannot question the bond that chose me, and you cannot question Ryan's judgment as your Alpha King." Silence fell over the chamber. Robert's expression was unreadable. Adam looked like he'd bitten into something sour. Then Jonathan Frost, an older wolf who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. "The girl has spirit. And she's not wrong about the bond. If the moon chose her for our king, who are we to argue with fate? The moon didn't choose anything," Adam spat. "This is about him thinking with his—" The table cracked under Ryan's hands. Literally cracked, a split running down the ancient oak like lightning. "Finish that sentence," he said softly, "and see what happens." Adam's face went pale. Even through his arrogance, he wasn't stupid enough to directly challenge the Alpha King in his own domain. "The bond is recognized," Jonathan said, shooting Adam a warning look. "The mark is legitimate. By our laws, Ella Mays is Luna Queen whether we approve or not. The question isn't whether she has the right to the title. The question is whether we'll support her in it or force our king to choose between his mate and his council." The ultimatum hung in the air like smoke. Ryan's hand found Ella's under the table, squeezing gently. Through the bond, she felt his rage and his gratitude and his absolute certainty that he would burn the kingdom to the ground before he let anyone take her from him. "I won't choose," Ryan said, his voice cutting through the tension. "Because there is no choice. Ella is my mate. My Luna. If you can't accept that, you're welcome to challenge me for the crown, but know that I'll destroy anyone who tries." Robert sighed, suddenly looking every one of his 60-plus years. "No one's challenging you, boy. We're just old wolves who don't like change." He turned to Ella, and something in his expression softened. "You stood your ground. That's more than most humans would do in a room full of predators. If you're willing to learn our ways, if you're willing to earn the respect you haven't been given, then perhaps there's hope for this situation yet." It wasn't approval, but it wasn't outright rejection either. Ella would take what she could get. "I'm willing," she said firmly. "Whatever it takes." The pack gathering that weekend was Ella's official introduction as Luna Queen. Ryan's pack land stretched across hundreds of acres outside the city-dense forest, surrounding a massive clearing where wolves from all 23 territories gathered for important events. There were easily 300 wolves present, maybe more, and Ella could feel their eyes on her like brands against her skin. "You'll be fine," Ryan murmured, his hand steady on her lower back. "Just remember what we practiced. Be confident, be decisive. Don't apologize for existing." Easy for him to say. He'd been born into this world. Ella had been dropped into it like Alice down the rabbit hole, and she was still trying to figure out which way was up. The ceremony was simple but profound. Ryan stood before his pack, some in human form. Some already shifted into their wolf forms, and presented Ella as his bonded mate. "This is Ella Mays," his voice carried across the clearing, amplified by alpha power. "My fated mate, your Luna Queen. She bears my mark and my protection. To challenge her is to challenge me. To disrespect her is to disrespect your king. Am I understood?" A chorus of "Yes, Alpha," echoed through the trees. Then came the part Ella had been dreading, the individual introductions. Pack members lined up to meet their new Luna, to offer their loyalty, to size up the human who'd somehow captured their king's heart. Most were polite, if distant. Some were openly skeptical. A few, like Judith, who'd grown surprisingly protective over the past months, were genuinely welcoming. And then there was Scott Albert. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with the kind of aggressive energy that immediately put Ella on edge. When it was his turn to meet her, he didn't bow like the others. He looked her up and down with undisguised contempt. "So you're the human," he said, loud enough for nearby wolves to hear. "The one who seduced our king into abandoning tradition." Ryan moved, but Ella touched his arm, stopping him. This was her test. Everyone was watching to see how she'd handle disrespect. "I'm the human who's mated to your alpha king," Ella corrected, her voice steady. "The one who will be Luna of this pack, whether you like it or not. The question is whether you're wolf enough to respect the bond, or whether you're going to continue disrespecting your king's choice and waste everyone's time." Scott's eyes flashed amber, his wolf close to the surface. "You don't know anything about our world. You're a weakness waiting to be exploited. Every enemy the king has will see you as the perfect target. Then they'll have to go through me first," Ryan said, his voice dropping to that dangerous register that made strong wolves back down. "And then through Judith. And then through every wolf in this pack who understands what the mate bond means. By the time they reach Ella, they'll be dead 3 times over." Scott's bravado crumbled. He dropped his eyes, exposing his throat in submission. "Yes, Alpha. You're dismissed," Ryan said coldly. As Scott slunk away, Ella felt the eyes of the pack on her with new assessment. She'd stood up to disrespect. She'd defended her position. She'd proven she wouldn't be easily intimidated. It wasn't enough to win their complete loyalty, but it was a start. They were driving home when Ryan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "It's Judith. She never calls this late unless something's wrong," he answered, putting it on speaker. "What happened?" "We have a situation." Judith's voice was grim. "There's a human at the perimeter gate asking for Ella. Says his name is Bud Larkin and he needs to see her immediately. He's drunk, aggressive, and making a scene. The guards are ready to remove him, but I wanted to check with you first." Ella's blood ran cold. "Bud's at the Packlands? How the hell did he find this place?" Ryan demanded. "He says he followed you from the city. Says he needs to talk to Ella about the truth, and he won't leave until he sees her." Judith paused. "Alpha, he's yelling about how you stole his girlfriend and she's making a huge mistake. It's not a good look in front of the pack members who are still here. Ryan's hands tightened on the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Through the bond, Ella felt his rage building like a storm. "Don't let him leave," Ryan said, his voice deadly calm. "Don't lay a hand on him, but don't let him leave. We're 15 minutes out." He hung up and immediately accelerated, the car shooting forward into the night. "Ryan, what are you going to do?" Ella asked, worry twisting her stomach. "I'm going to make something very clear to your ex-boyfriend." His eyes flashed gold in the darkness. "He had his chance with you. He threw it away, and now he gets to watch while you stand beside an alpha king and realize exactly what he lost." Ella should probably try to de-escalate the situation. Should probably be the voice of reason. But part of her, the part that had been mocked and belittled and told she was too much, wanted to see Bud's face when he realized the truth. Wanted to see him understand that she hadn't just moved on. She'd ascended to a throne he couldn't even imagine existed. Chapter 6. The night he learned the truth. The Packland's entrance was lit by torches that cast dancing shadows across the iron gates. Beyond them, Ella could see a crowd gathered, at least 20 wolves watching the scene unfold with varying degrees of amusement and irritation. And in the center of it all was Bud Larkin, swaying slightly, his face flushed with alcohol and righteous indignation. "I know she's in there," he shouted at the two massive guards flanking the gate. Ella Mays, I need to talk to you. You're making a huge mistake." Ryan parked the car and was out before Ella could unbuckle her seatbelt. She hurried after him, her heart pounding as they approached the gate. Bud's eyes locked onto her immediately. "There you are, finally. Do you know how long I've been standing here? These gorillas won't let me pass, and I've been trying to explain that you're in danger." "Mr. Larkin." Ryan's voice cut through Bud's rambling like a knife through butter. "You're trespassing on private property. You need to leave. Now." Bud's attention shifted to Ryan, and his face twisted with anger. "Oh, here he is, the guy who's been filling her head with lies. Ella, listen to me. I know what this looks like, but I've been doing some research. This guy," he pointed at Ryan with an unsteady hand, "he's not who he says he is. He's involved in some kind of cult, or gang, or something. All these people." He gestured wildly at the watching wolves. "They're all part of it." A ripple of dark amusement went through the crowd. Judith, standing near the gate with her arms crossed, looked like she was struggling not to laugh. "A cult," Ryan repeated flatly. "That's what you think this is? I've been watching you for weeks. Following you. I saw all these people coming and going. Saw the way they act around you like you're some kind of king." Bud's voice cracked. "Ella, he's dangerous. Whatever he's told you, whatever he's promised, it's all lies. You need to come with me right now before something terrible happens." Ella felt a strange mixture of pity and anger looking at him. Part of her understood what he was trying to do in his own misguided, drunken way. He thought he was saving her. But the larger part remembered every moment of their relationship where he'd made her feel small, where he'd told her she was too much, where he'd thrown her love back in her face like it was worthless. "Bud," she said quietly, stepping forward. "You need to go home. Sleep this off. Forget you ever came here." "Forget?" His laugh was bitter and sharp. "How can I forget when I spent 3 years with you and threw it away because I was an idiot? How can I forget when I see you with him and realize I gave up the best thing that ever happened to me?" His eyes were wet now, tears mixing with the alcohol flush on his cheeks. "I made a mistake, Ella. A huge mistake, and I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm begging you, don't throw your life away on some rich guy with a savior complex and a weird militia compound. Come back, please. We can fix this. We can fix us." The desperation in his voice would have broken her heart 5 months ago. Would have made her reconsider. Made her wonder if maybe she'd judged him too harshly, if maybe love deserved a second chance. But that was before she'd learned what real love looked like. Before she'd felt what it meant to be chosen, to be cherished, to be someone's entire world instead of their convenient option. "There is no us to fix," Ella said, and her voice was gentle but firm. "There hasn't been for a long time, maybe there never was. You didn't make a mistake, Bud. You made a choice. You chose to end things. You chose to tell me I was suffocating you. You chose to walk away, and I've chosen to move forward. With him? Bud jabbed a finger at Ryan again. You've known him for 5 months. 5 months, Ella. And you're already living in his penthouse, going to his weird forest parties, letting him control your life. He doesn't control anything, Ella interrupted, her patience fraying. I make my own choices. I always have. The difference is that Ryan respects those choices instead of punishing me for them. Respect? Bud's voice rose hysterically. He's brainwashed you. This whole thing, the secrecy, the isolation, the way all these people act around him like he's some kind of god, it's textbook cult behavior. And you can't even see it because you're so desperate to be loved that you'll believe anything. Ryan moved so fast, Ella almost didn't see it. 1 second he was standing beside her. The next he had Bud pressed against the iron gate. His hand around the human's throat, not choking but immobilizing. Listen very carefully, Ryan said, his voice dropping to that alpha tone that made wolves bare their throats in submission. You're going to stop talking. You're going to get in your car. You're going to drive away and never come back here. Because if you ever speak to my mate that way again, if you ever question her intelligence, or imply she's too desperate to make her own choices, I will make you regret the day you were born. Bud's eyes were wide with terror, all the alcohol-fueled bravado draining from his face. Your mate? That's right. Ryan's smile was all teeth and no warmth. Ella isn't just my girlfriend, Bud. She isn't just some human I'm dating. She's my bonded mate, my Luna, my queen, and you're a pathetic little man who had something precious and threw it away because you were too small to appreciate it. Luna? Bud's voice came out as a strangled whisper. Queen? What the hell are you talking about? Ryan released him and stepped back. For a long moment, he simply looked at Bud, this ordinary, insignificant human who'd made Ella feel worthless for 3 years. Then he made a decision that changed everything. Judith, Ryan called without taking his eyes off Bud. Show him. Alpha. Are you sure? Judith's voice carried a note of warning, revealing ourselves to an outsider. He wants to know what Ella's gotten herself into. Let's show him. Ryan's eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to the surface. Let him see exactly what kind of world she's chosen. What kind of power she wields now. Ella's breath caught. Ryan, trust me, he said softly, and through the bond she felt his certainty, his absolute conviction that this was the right call. Judith stepped forward, and without ceremony, she shifted. Bud's scream echoed through the forest as he watched a human woman transform into a massive gray wolf, 7 feet tall at the shoulder, with fangs like daggers and eyes that gleamed with intelligence and predatory intent. Then the guards shifted. Then 3 more wolves from the crowd. Within seconds, Bud was surrounded by a half-circle of massive predators, all of them watching him with unsettling calm. What? What the fuck? Bud backed against the gate, his face white as death. This can't be. Werewolves, Ryan said casually, as if he were commenting on the weather. We're werewolves, Bud. And I'm not just some rich businessman. I'm the Alpha King of the Eastern Kingdoms. I rule over 23 packs, thousands of wolves, territories that stretch from here to the Atlantic coast. And Ella? He reached for her hand, pulling her to his side. Ella is my Luna Queen, my mate, my equal in all things. Bud stared at Ella like he'd never seen her before. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, Ella said. And despite everything, the fear, the tension, the surreal nature of the moment, she felt a fierce pride surge through her. You spent 3 years making me feel like I was too much, like my love was a burden, like I needed to shrink myself down to be acceptable. But the truth is, I wasn't too much. I just needed someone big enough to match me, someone who saw my strength instead of my flaws, someone who understood that devotion isn't weakness, it's power. She stepped forward, and Bud instinctively backed up, pressing harder against the gate. Ryan didn't steal me from you, Ella continued, her voice steady and strong. You threw me away. You discarded something precious because you were too blind to see its value. And now I'm standing here as Luna Queen of the most powerful werewolf pack in the Eastern Kingdoms, and you're the one drunk and desperate at my gates begging for scraps. The reversal was so complete, so absolute, that for a moment Bud couldn't speak. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. You need to leave, Ryan said, his tone final. You need to forget you ever came here, forget what you saw, and move on with your life. If you tell anyone about us, if you breathe a word about werewolves or packs or any of this, we'll know. And there are wolves far less merciful than me who would be happy to ensure your silence permanently. It was a threat wrapped in politeness, but the message was clear: speak and die. Bud looked around at the shifted wolves, at Ryan's glowing eyes, at Ella standing tall beside her mate, and something in him finally broke. The fight drained out of him, leaving behind only a hollow, defeated man who just realized he'd lost something irreplaceable. I'm sorry, he whispered, and Ella wasn't sure if he was apologizing to her or to himself. I'm so sorry, Ella. I know, she said softly. But sorry doesn't change anything. Goodbye, Bud. The wolves parted, creating a path to the parking area where Bud's car sat like an escape route to sanity. He stumbled through them, his eyes down, his shoulders hunched, looking smaller with every step. Just before he reached his car, he turned back one last time. Were you ever going to tell me about this? Ella considered the question. No. You weren't part of my world anymore. You gave up that right when you walked away. Bud nodded slowly, like he'd expected that answer. Then he got in his car and drove away, the taillights disappearing into the night like the last remnants of Ella's old life. The moment he was gone, the shifted wolves transformed back to human form. Someone started clapping slow, deliberate applause that was quickly picked up by the others. Within seconds, the entire crowd was applauding, and Ella realized with a start that it was for her. Well done, Luna, Judith said, genuine respect in her voice. That took courage. And you handled it perfectly. Robert Ellison stepped forward from the crowd. Ella hadn't even realized he was still here. You faced down a threat without flinching. You defended your position. You proved you understood what power means in our world. He inclined his head, not quite a bow, but close. Perhaps I was too hasty in my judgment. You may be human, but you have the heart of a wolf. Coming from Robert, who'd been one of her harshest critics at the council meeting, that was practically a declaration of loyalty. Ryan pulled Ella against his side, pressing a kiss to her temple. I told you, he murmured. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Ella leaned into him, feeling the bond pulse between them warm and golden and absolutely unbreakable. He really followed us? For weeks? Seems like it. Probably thought he was being noble, saving the damsel from the big bad cult leader. Instead, he just discovered that werewolves are real and his ex-girlfriend is their queen. Must have been a rough night for him. Ella laughed, a real laugh that came from somewhere deep and genuine. I should probably feel worse about it, but you don't. No, I really don't. She turned to face Ryan, cupping his face in her hands. Is it terrible that I'm glad he saw? That he knows exactly what he lost? It's human, Ryan said, and his smile was wicked, and incredibly satisfying. Though I think my favorite part was when you told him he threw away something precious. The look on his face. Pure devastation. Absolutely destroyed. They were still laughing when Judith cleared her throat. Alpha, Luna, we should probably discuss security measures. If the human followed you once, others might try. We need to ensure the packlands stay hidden. Ryan sobered immediately, his expression shifting back to Alpha King mode. You're right. Double the perimeter patrols. And put word out to all the packs if anyone sees suspicious humans near our territories. I want to know immediately. As Judith strode off to implement his orders, Ryan looked down at Ella, ready to go home. More than ready. She glanced back at the gates where Bud had stood, where her past had come crashing into her present, and shattered against the reality of who she'd become. Though I think I'm going to sleep very well tonight. Good. Because tomorrow we're making a formal announcement to all 23 packs. No more half measures. No more keeping you hidden. The entire kingdom is going to know that their king has found his Luna. The council approved that? After tonight. After they saw you face down your ex and command respect from wolves who've lived for decades. Yes. Robert himself suggested it. Said you'd earned the right to stand beside me publicly. Ella felt tears prick her eyes, but they were happy tears this time. 5 months ago, I was sitting in a coffee shop, being told I was too clingy to love. Now I'm Luna, Queen of the Eastern Kingdoms. No, Ryan corrected gently. 5 months ago, you were always Luna Queen. You just hadn't found your kingdom yet. As they drove away from the Packlands, Ella looked out at the forest rushing past and thought about the journey that had brought her here, from broken and discarded to powerful and cherished. From begging for scraps to ruling beside a king, Bud Larkin had been right about one thing. She had changed. She'd grown. She'd become someone different, but he'd been wrong about everything else. Ryan hadn't brainwashed her. He'd freed her. He'd shown her what she'd always been capable of when someone believed in her instead of diminishing her. And now Bud would go home and spend the rest of his life knowing that the woman he'd thrown away like trash had become a queen. Ella smiled and reached for Ryan's hand. It was, she decided, a pretty perfect ending to her old life, and an even better beginning to her new one. Chapter 7. When the Kingdom Watched. The Grand Hall was packed with representatives from all 23 packs. Alphas, betas, council members, and distinguished wolves who'd traveled from across the Eastern Kingdoms to witness history being made. Ella stood beside Ryan on the raised platform, wearing a deep blue dress that Judith had insisted made her look like actual royalty instead of a nervous human. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her chin high and her shoulders back. After 6 months of learning to navigate this world, she knew that showing weakness now would undo all the progress she'd made. Nervous? Ryan murmured, his hand warm on her lower back. Terrified, she admitted. There are at least 500 wolves in this room who think I have no business standing beside you. Then they're idiots. His thumb stroked reassuring circles against her spine. You've earned this position 10 times over. They're about to see that. Jonathan Frost stepped forward to address the assembly, his voice carrying easily through the massive space. Wolves of the Eastern Kingdoms. We are gathered here to witness a historic moment. For the first time in 3 generations, our Alpha King has found his fated mate. A murmur rippled through the crowd, some curious, some skeptical, some openly hostile. The mate bond is sacred, Jonathan continued. It is chosen by forces older than our oldest laws, deeper than our deepest traditions. When fate speaks, even kings must listen, and fate has spoken clearly. Ella Mays is the chosen mate of Alpha King Ryan Reese. Ryan stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate silence. 6 months ago, I met Ella at a farmer's market. I felt the bond the moment our hands touched, that undeniable pull that every wolf dreams of finding. She was human, unaware of our world, with no reason to believe anything I told her, but she had courage, she had strength, and she had a heart big enough to accept not just me, but everything that comes with being my mate. He turned to Ella, extending his hand. She took it, stepping forward to face the sea of faces, some friendly, many not. Since completing our bond, Ella has proven herself time and again, Ryan continued. She has studied our history and our laws. She has faced down skeptical council members and hostile pack members with grace and dignity. She has shown wisdom beyond her years and courage beyond her species. She is not just my mate, she is my equal. My Luna, your queen. She's human, someone shouted from the back of the room. She has no wolf. How can a human rule over wolves? Before Ryan could respond, Robert Ellison stood, the silver-haired alpha's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. I said the same thing at the council meeting. I questioned her right to stand beside our king. I was wrong. Silence fell. Robert's opinion carried weight. He was one of the oldest, most respected alphas in the kingdom. I watched Luna Ella face down disrespect with dignity, Robert continued. I watched her defend her position without cowering. I watched her handle a threat from her past life with wisdom and strength. She may not have a wolf, but she has something more important. She has the heart of a leader, and she has earned my respect. Another voice rose, this one belonging to a young female alpha named Nicole Pearson from the coastal territories. With respect, Elder Robert, earning your respect doesn't qualify her to rule. What happens when we face threats that require wolf strength? When we need someone who understands pack dynamics from birth, not from textbooks, when enemies come for her because she's the weakest link in our king's armor? Ryan's eyes flashed gold, but Ella squeezed his hand, a silent message to let her handle this. You're right, Ella said, her voice clear and steady. I am human. I will always be human. I can't shift. I can't fight like you do. I can't tap into centuries of instinct and tradition. Those are legitimate concerns. And I won't insult your intelligence by pretending otherwise. Nicole blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. But what I can do, Ella continued, is see our world from both sides. I understand human society in ways that wolves can't: their politics, their systems, their blind spots. I can navigate their world while protecting ours. I can be the bridge between two species that have existed side by side for millennia without either fully understanding the other. She took a breath, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes on her. You asked what happens when enemies come for me. I'll tell you, they'll find out that being Luna isn't about physical strength. It's about making impossible decisions. It's about carrying the weight of thousands of lives and never letting that burden show. It's about being strong enough to admit weakness and wise enough to surround yourself with people who complement your limitations. She met Nicole's eyes directly. I will never be the strongest wolf in this room, but I will be the Luna who fights for this pack with everything I have. And I will earn your loyalty one decision at a time, even if it takes the rest of my life. The silence that followed felt like a living thing. Then Nicole stood, and slowly, deliberately, she bowed. Well spoken, Luna. I withdraw my objection. One by one, other wolves began to stand. Not all of them. There were still holdouts, still skeptics, but enough. Enough to show that Ella had won something precious. A chance to prove herself. Ryan's pride flooded through the bond, so intense it made Ella's eyes sting with tears. The bond is recognized, Jonathan declared formally. Luna Ella Mays is acknowledged as mate and queen to Alpha King Ryan Reese. Let any who would challenge this speak now or hold their peace. The challenge hung in the air for a long, tense moment. Then a voice rang out, cold, calculating, and dripping with contempt. I challenge. The crowd parted, and a man stepped forward. He was tall and lean, with dark hair shot through with silver and eyes the color of ice. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge, and even the other alphas seemed to shrink back slightly as he approached the platform. Hector Moody, Ryan said, and his voice was flat with recognition and dread. Of course it's you. Hello, cousin, Hector said with a smile that never reached his eyes. Did you really think I'd let this travesty go unchallenged? Ella felt her stomach drop. Cousin. Ryan had never mentioned having family beyond his dead parents. Hector has no claim here, Judith said sharply, moving to stand between him and the platform. He was exiled from the Eastern Kingdoms 15 years ago. For attempting to overthrow my father, Ryan finished coldly. For murdering 3 council members who opposed him. For nearly starting a civil war that would have destroyed half the packs in this kingdom. Hector shrugged, unbothered by the accusations. Ancient history. I've served my exile, paid my dues. And according to our oldest laws, any wolf can challenge a Luna's claim if they believe she's unworthy. Especially a wolf with royal blood. His smile widened. I believe your human mate is unworthy, cousin, so I'm formally challenging her right to the title. You can't challenge a fated mate bond, Adam Harmon said, though he looked nervous. The challenge tradition applies to political marriages. I'm not challenging the bond, Hector interrupted smoothly. I'm challenging her worthiness to rule. There's a difference. He looked directly at Ella, and the hatred in his eyes made her blood run cold. Your little human has a pretty speech about being a bridge between worlds. Let's see if she can actually lead wolves when it matters. I challenge Luna Ella to the trial of 3 moons. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even Robert looked shocked. The trial hasn't been invoked in over a century, Jonathan protested. It's archaic, barbaric. We don't use it anymore. But it's still in our laws, Hector said pleasantly. Still valid, still binding, unless, of course, your Luna is too weak to accept. Ryan moved faster than thought, his hand around Hector's throat, lifting him off the ground. You think I'll let you anywhere near my mate? You think I'll allow you to threaten her? Ryan, stop. Ella's voice cut through his rage. Put him down. Ella, put him down. Now. Ryan's jaw clenched, but he obeyed, dropping Hector like a sack of garbage. His cousin landed gracefully, still smiling that awful smile. What is the trial of 3 moons? Ella asked, looking at Jonathan. The old wolf looked pained. It's an ancient test of leadership. 3 challenges over 3 full moons. Each one tests a different aspect of what it means to be Luna wisdom, courage, and heart. If you fail any of them, your claim to the title is forfeit. And if she refuses the challenge? Ryan demanded. Then she's automatically deemed unworthy, Hector said cheerfully. She loses the title. You remain Alpha King, but without a Luna. And according to our laws, an unmated king is obligated to choose a new mate within 1 year from approved bloodlines. That's enough, Ella said, her voice cutting through Hector's explanation. She looked at Ryan, saw the desperation in his eyes, felt his fear and rage through the bond. Then she looked back at Hector. I accept your challenge. Ella, no. Ryan reached for her, but she stepped away. I accept, she repeated firmly. 3 challenges, 3 moons. I'll prove my worth to anyone who doubts it. She met Hector's cold eyes with fire in her own. And when I succeed, you'll leave these territories and never return. That's my condition. Hector's smile finally faltered. He hadn't expected her to accept, let alone counter with her own terms. Agreed. But when you fail, and you will fail, human, I want Ryan to publicly acknowledge that fated bonds don't supersede the good of the kingdom. That sometimes, love has to take a backseat to duty. It was a poison pill designed to destroy them either way. If Ella won, Hector left. But if she lost, Ryan would have to choose between his mate and his crown. Agreed, Ella said before Ryan could protest. 3 moons. Starting with the next full moon, which is 10 days from now, Judith said quietly, her expression grim. Then I have 10 days to prepare. Ella turned to Ryan, cupping his face in her hands. Through the bond, she pushed every ounce of certainty she possessed. Trust me, I can do this. He'll try to kill you, Ryan said, his voice breaking. The trials, they're not metaphorical, they're real physical challenges. You're human, Ella, you could actually die. Then I'll die as your Luna, she said simply. But I won't die, Ryan. Because I have something Hector doesn't understand. I have you. I have our bond. I have a pack that's starting to believe in me. And I have the knowledge that I've already survived the worst thing that could happen to me, being made to feel worthless by someone I loved. After that, 3 trials seemed manageable. She was lying. She was terrified. But she'd learned from watching wolves that showing fear was the same as showing weakness. And Luna Queens didn't show weakness. Not even when their world was crumbling around them. Chapter 8. Judging with Wisdom's Eyes. The 10 days before the first trial passed in a blur of preparation and mounting dread. Ryan threw every resource at Ella's disposal. Judith drilled her on pack history and precedent. Robert shared stories of past trials, though none had been invoked in living memory. Even the skeptical council members offered advice, perhaps realizing that Ella's failure would destabilize the entire kingdom. But no amount of preparation could ease the knot of fear in Ella's stomach as the full moon rose on the 10th night. The trial was held in the ancient amphitheater deep in Pack Lands, a circular stone structure that predated most human civilizations. Torches ringed the space, casting dancing shadows across hundreds of gathered wolves. In the center stood a raised platform where Ella would face her first challenge. Hector waited there, his expression smug and confident. Beside him stood 3 elderly wolves, the trial keepers, ancient arbiters who would judge whether Ella passed or failed. The trial of wisdom, announced the eldest keeper, a woman whose white hair fell to her waist and whose eyes held centuries of knowledge. The Luna must prove she can make difficult decisions, see through deception, and prioritize the good of the pack above personal desire. Luna, Ella, do you accept this challenge? Ella stepped onto the platform, her legs steadier than she felt. I accept. Then hear the challenge, the keeper continued. Before you are 3 wolves, bound and awaiting judgment. Each has committed a crime against the pack. You must decide their fates based on pack law, tradition, and wisdom. Your choices will be final and binding. 3 wolves were led onto the platform, their hands bound behind their backs. Ella's heart sank when she recognized one of them, Scott Albert, the young wolf who'd challenged her at the pack gathering. He looked terrified, his earlier arrogance completely gone. The first wolf, the keeper said, gesturing to Scott, attacked a human in the city during a shift. The human survived but required hospitalization. The attack was witnessed by others, and we had to use significant resources to cover it up and ensure our secrecy remained intact. Pack law states that any wolf who risks exposure deserves death. Scott's face went white. Please, Luna, I didn't mean it was an accident. I lost control. It won't happen again. Silence, the keeper commanded. The Luna will hear all 3 cases before deciding. The second wolf was a middle-aged woman Ella didn't recognize. This wolf, the keeper explained, stole from the pack's emergency funds. $5,000 that was meant for families in crisis. She claims she needed it for medical bills for her human daughter who doesn't know about our world. She has returned the money, but the theft still occurred. The woman kept her eyes down, shame radiating from her. The third wolf, the keeper gestured to a teenage boy, who couldn't be more than 17, killed another wolf in combat. The death was ruled accidental during training, but investigation revealed the deceased wolf had been bullying the defendant for months. Some say it was revenge disguised as accident. Others say it was self-defense that went too far. The boy's jaw was clenched, his eyes defiant even in chains. These are your cases, the keeper said to Ella. You must decide, death, exile, or mercy. Choose wisely, for your decisions will reveal whether you understand what it means to lead wolves. Ella's mind raced. This was the wisdom trial, not just about knowing pack law, but about understanding the spirit behind it. About balancing justice with mercy, tradition with compassion. She looked at Hector, who watched her with barely concealed glee. He'd chosen these cases carefully. Each one was designed to trap her. If she showed too much mercy, wolves would see her as weak, unwilling to make hard choices. If she was too harsh, they'd see her as cruel and unfit to lead. And if she simply followed pack law to the letter without considering context, she'd prove she didn't understand what wisdom really meant. Ella took a deep breath and approached Scott first. You attacked a human, and risked exposing our entire world, she said, her voice carrying across the amphitheater. Pack law says you deserve death. But pack law was written when wolves lived in smaller communities, when one slip could doom everyone. We're not in that world anymore. We have resources, connections, ways to contain mistakes. She looked at the keepers. Scott's crime was serious, but it was also his first offense. He's young, and by all accounts, he lost control rather than acted with malice. Death would be justice, but it would also be waste. This pack needs wolves, not corpses. What is your sentence? The keeper demanded. Exile, Ella said firmly. 5 years away from pack lands. He'll serve it in the Western Territories under Alpha supervision, learning control and discipline. If he returns before his time, or if he causes any trouble during his exile, then the death sentence stands. But I'm giving him a chance to become the wolf he should be instead of killing the wolf he is now. Scott's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Luna. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Ella said coldly. You have 5 years to prove this mercy wasn't misplaced. Don't waste it. She moved to the second wolf, the woman who'd stolen from the pack funds. You stole from families in crisis to help your own family in crisis, Ella said. I understand the impossible choice you faced, but you made the wrong one. You took resources from wolves who needed them because you couldn't be honest about your own needs. The woman's shoulders shook with silent sobs. However, Ella continued, you returned the money, you showed remorse, and most importantly, your crime reveals a failure not just in your judgment, but in our pack's support systems. If you felt stealing was your only option, it means we failed to create an environment where you could ask for help. She turned to address the entire amphitheater. This wolf's sentence is restitution and service. She'll work for the pack for 1 year, and her wages will go to rebuilding the emergency fund she depleted. But more importantly, I'm ordering the creation of a confidential assistance program for wolves in crisis. No one should have to choose between their family and their pack. We're supposed to be one and the same. Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. Even Hector looked slightly less smug. The third case was the hardest. Ella approached the teenage boy, studying his defiant expression. You killed another wolf, she said quietly. Maybe it was an accident, maybe it was revenge. Maybe it was self-defense that went too far. The truth is somewhere in between, and we may never know exactly what happened in that training ring. The boy's defiance cracked slightly. He made my life hell for months. He was twice my size, and he wouldn't stop. No one would stop him. I just wanted it to end. So you ended him instead, Ella said, and the boy flinched. You took a life, Whether you meant to or not, that can't be undone. That stain can't be washed away. She was quiet for a long moment, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her shoulders. Pack law would call this murder, she finally said. But pack law also says wolves should protect the weak from the strong, and clearly that didn't happen here. Your victim was a bully who tormented you while the pack looked away. His death is a tragedy, but it's also a consequence of a culture that allowed abuse to flourish unchecked. She took a deep breath. My sentence is this: you will not die, and you will not be exiled. But you will carry the weight of what you've done for the rest of your life. You'll serve in the pack's youth program, mentoring younger wolves, and ensuring that what happened to you never happens to anyone else. You'll be a living reminder that we protect our own, especially the vulnerable. The boy's eyes widened in disbelief. You're letting me stay? I'm giving you a purpose, Ella corrected. I'm turning your tragedy into something meaningful. Don't make me regret it. She turned to face the keepers, her heart pounding. Those are my judgments. Scott gets exile and a chance to reform. The woman gets restitution and a chance to rebuild. The boy gets purpose and a chance to prevent others from suffering as he did. I chose mercy where mercy could be afforded, justice where it was required, and wisdom, I hope, in knowing the difference. The eldest keeper studied her for a long, tense moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. The Luna has passed the trial of wisdom, she announced, and the amphitheater erupted in applause and howls. She has shown she understands that leadership is not about following rules blindly, but about knowing when to bend them for the greater good. She has proven she can balance tradition with innovation, justice with mercy, and law with compassion. Relief flooded through Ella so intensely her knees nearly buckled. Ryan was at her side in an instant, pulling her against him, his pride and joy pouring through the bond. 1 down, he murmured. 2 to go. Ella looked over at Hector, expecting to see rage or disappointment. Instead, he was smiling, a cold, calculated smile that made her blood run cold. Well done, cousin's mate, Hector said, his voice carrying across the platform. You passed the easy trial. Let's see how you fare when the challenges require more than pretty speeches. The threat hung in the air like poison. The trial of courage was in 3 weeks, and Ella had a terrible feeling that Hector wasn't done trying to destroy her. Chapter 9. Blood, Bruises, and Unbroken Will. The 3 weeks between trials were the longest of Ella's life. Ryan trained her relentlessly, teaching her how to fight, how to move, how to survive against opponents who were stronger, faster, and deadlier than any human could be. Her body ached constantly, bruises blooming across her skin like dark flowers, but she pushed through the pain because failure wasn't an option. You can't match a wolf's strength, Judith said during one particularly brutal sparring session. But you can be smarter, faster, more unpredictable. Use your size to your advantage, get under their guard, move where they don't expect. Ella wiped blood from her split lip and nodded. Again. By the time the second full moon rose, Ella's hands were calloused, her reflexes sharper, her body harder than it had ever been. But she also knew, deep in her bones, that it wouldn't be enough. The trial of courage wouldn't be a fair fight. Hector would make sure of that. The amphitheater was packed again, but this time the atmosphere was different, electric with anticipation and bloodlust. Wolves sensed violence coming, and part of them craved it. Ella stood on the platform in fitted training clothes, her hair pulled back, every muscle coiled and ready. Across from her, Hector smiled his terrible smile. The trial of courage, the eldest keeper announced. The Luna must prove she can face fear without flinching, protect the pack even at cost to herself, and stand strong when all seems lost. Luna, Ella, do you accept this challenge? I accept, Ella said, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. Then hear the challenge. The keeper continued. You will face 3 opponents in combat. You may not kill them, but you must survive for 5 minutes against each. If you yield, if you beg for mercy, if you show cowardice in any form, you fail. 3 wolves stepped onto the platform. The first was a young male, probably in his 20s, who looked apologetic. The second was a grizzled veteran with scars crisscrossing his arms. The third made Ella's blood run cold. It was a massive she-wolf who had to be 7 feet tall, even in human form, with muscles that looked carved from stone. You'll face them one at a time, the keeper said. 5 minutes each. Survive, and you pass. It sounded simple. It was anything but. The young male apologized again as he attacked. Nothing personal, Luna. Just following orders. But there was nothing apologetic about his fists. He came at her fast and hard, using his superior strength to drive her back across the platform. Ella ducked and weaved, using every trick Judith had taught her, but he was so much stronger. One solid hit to her ribs sent her crashing to the ground, gasping. The crowd roared, some cheering for her, others jeering. "Get up!" Ryan's voice echoed through the bond. "You're stronger than this. Get up." Ella rolled away from a kick that would have broken ribs, swept her leg out and caught the male's ankle. He went down, and she used the precious seconds to put distance between them. 4 minutes left. She couldn't match his strength, so she focused on not getting hit. It was like dancing with a hurricane, exhausting, terrifying, and requiring every ounce of concentration she possessed. When the keeper finally called time, Ella's nose was bleeding and her right eye was swelling shut, but she was still standing. 5 minutes survived, the keeper announced. Round 2 begins now. No rest, no break. The scarred veteran was already moving. He was smarter than the young male. He didn't rely on brute force. He studied her, looking for weaknesses, and when he attacked it was with precision and calculation. He went for her injured ribs, her swelling eye, every vulnerable spot with surgical accuracy. Ella's world narrowed to pain and survival. She couldn't think beyond the next second, the next dodge, the next desperate attempt to stay on her feet. Blood filled her mouth from a blow she didn't see coming. Her vision blurred. Through the bond, she felt Ryan's agony, feeling every hit she took, as if he were the one being beaten. His rage was a living thing, barely contained. 3 minutes left. The veteran caught her with an uppercut that sent her sprawling. Stars exploded across her vision. She could taste copper and defeat. "Stay down," he advised quietly. "No shame in it. You've proven your courage." But yielding meant failing. Failing meant losing Ryan, losing everything. Ella dragged herself to her feet, swaying, her body screaming at her to stop. "I don't stay down," she said, through bloody lips. "Not for anyone." Something shifted in the veteran's expression. Respect, maybe. He came at her again, but this time, he telegraphed his moves just slightly, giving her the split second she needed to dodge. When the keeper called time, Ella was barely conscious, held upright by pure stubbornness and the bond singing strength through her veins. 5 minutes survived, the keeper said. Final round. The massive she-wolf stepped forward, and Ella wanted to cry. She had nothing left. Her body was broken, her mind fuzzy, her reserves completely empty. "This is it," she thought. "This is where I fail." "No," Ryan's voice was fierce in her mind. "You don't fail. Not today. Not ever. You're my mate. My Luna. My queen. And queens don't bow to anyone." The she-wolf attacked like an avalanche, unstoppable, devastating, overwhelming. Ella tried to dodge, but her body was too slow, too damaged. A massive fist connected with her stomach, driving the air from her lungs. She hit the ground hard enough to crack stone. "Yield," the she-wolf said, standing over her. "You've done enough. No one will think less of you." Ella's vision was fading. She could hear Ryan roaring from the crowd, could feel him fighting against Judith and Robert, who were physically holding him back from interfering. 5 minutes. She just had to survive 5 more minutes. But she couldn't even stand. Then, through the haze of pain and defeat, Ella remembered something her mother had told her before she died. Strength isn't about never falling down, baby. It's about getting back up when falling down is the easier choice. With a sound that was half sob, half battle cry, Ella pushed herself to her hands and knees. "No," she gasped. No yielding. The crowd went silent. Even the she-wolf looked shocked. Ella got one foot under her, then the other. She stood, swaying like a tree in a storm, but standing. "I won't yield," she said again, louder. "I won't beg. I won't bow. You want me down? You'll have to kill me." The she-wolf studied her for a long moment. Then, incredibly, she smiled. "You know what? I believe you would die before you'd quit." She looked at the keeper. "I yield." "What?" Hector's voice cracked like a whip. You can't yield. She's the one being tested. And she's passed the test, the she-wolf said calmly. The trial of courage isn't about winning a fight. It's about refusing to break, when breaking is the easy choice. Luna Ella has shown more courage in 5 minutes than most wolves show in a lifetime. I won't dishonor her bravery by continuing to beat her when she's already proven her point. The eldest keeper stood, and for the first time since the trials began, she smiled. The she-wolf speaks truth. The trial of courage tests the spirit, not the body. Luna Ella has faced opponents far stronger than herself and refused to yield. She has stood when standing was impossible. She has proven that courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear win. The keeper's voice rang out across the amphitheater. Luna Ella has passed the trial of courage. The crowd erupted howls and cheers that shook the very stones. Ryan broke free from his restraints and was at Ella's side in an instant, catching her as her legs finally gave out. You magnificent, stubborn, impossible woman, he said, his voice breaking as he cradled her against his chest. You scared me half to death. Worth it, Ella mumbled, her words slurring. 2 down, 1 to go. Through her fading vision, she saw Hector's face no longer smug, no longer confident. He looked like a man watching his perfect plan crumble to dust. The final trial, Ella said, forcing her eyes to stay open, forcing herself to look at him. Bring it on. Then darkness claimed her, and she knew nothing more. Ella woke 3 days later in the pack's medical facility, her body wrapped in bandages and her mind fuzzy with painkillers. Ryan sat beside her bed, his hand wrapped around hers, dark circles under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept since she collapsed. Hey, she whispered, and his head snapped up. Ella, thank God. He pressed kisses to her forehead, her cheeks, her lips gentle touches that spoke of desperate relief. You've been unconscious for 3 days. The pack doctor said you had 2 cracked ribs, a concussion, internal bruising, and more contusions than she could count. But I passed, Ella said, and managed a weak smile. 2 trials down. You could have died, Ryan said, his voice raw. That she-wolf could have killed you with 1 hit if she'd wanted to. When I saw you get knocked down that last time, when you couldn't get up, his voice broke completely. I thought I'd lost you, but you didn't. Ella squeezed his hand. And I'm not going to die, Ryan. Not before I finish this. Not before I prove to every wolf in this kingdom that I deserve to stand beside you. You've already proven that 10 times over, Ryan said fiercely. No one who watched you in that arena could doubt your courage. Even the wolves who opposed you are calling you a hero. They're saying you have the heart of an alpha. That you, Ryan, Ella interrupted gently. What's the 3rd trial? His expression darkened. The trial of heart. It's in 2 weeks, and according to tradition, it tests the Luna's capacity for sacrifice and love. But Hector won't play fair. He's desperate now, 2 failures in a row. He'll make the 3rd trial impossible. Then I'll do the impossible, Ella said simply. Whatever it takes. Ryan studied her face, bruised, battered, but unbroken, and something in his expression shifted. You really would, wouldn't you? You'd die for this title. For me, for the pack. In a heartbeat, Ella said. Because this isn't just about proving myself anymore. It's about showing every wolf in this kingdom that strength comes in different forms. That humans aren't weak. That love and loyalty and stubborn refusal to quit can be just as powerful as claws and fangs. She paused, meeting his eyes. And because I love you. Because you saw worth in me when I couldn't see it in myself. Because you gave me a kingdom when all I wanted was someone who wouldn't make me feel like I was too much. Ryan's eyes shone with unshed tears. You're everything, Ella. Everything I never knew I needed. And if Hector tries anything, if he puts you in real danger during the 3rd trial, I'll kill him. Exile be damned. Ancient laws be damned. I'll rip him apart for threatening you. You won't, Ella said softly. Because I'm going to pass the 3rd trial just like I passed the first 2. And then Hector will have no choice but to leave and acknowledge that I'm worthy of being your Luna. What if? No what ifs, Ella interrupted. Just trust. Just belief. Just us against whatever comes next. Ryan pressed his forehead against hers, the bond between them pulsing with love and fear and determination. Us against the world. Always, Ella whispered. 2 weeks until the trial of heart. 2 weeks until Ella either secured her place as Luna Queen forever, or lost everything trying. Chapter 10. The final trial. Heart. The third full moon rose blood-red over the amphitheater, and Ella couldn't shake the feeling that it was an omen. She'd healed remarkably well in 2 weeks. The pack doctor had given her something that accelerated recovery, though it couldn't match true werewolf healing. Her ribs still ached when she breathed too deeply, but she could move, fight, and think clearly. That would have to be enough. The amphitheater was more crowded than ever. Word had spread beyond the eastern kingdoms. Wolves from neighboring territories had traveled to witness the conclusion of the trials. Some came to support Ella. Others came hoping to see her fail, and standing at the center of it all was Hector Moody, his expression unreadable. The trial of heart, the eldest keeper announced, her voice carrying weight and sorrow. The final test. The Luna must prove that her capacity for love and sacrifice exceeds her desire for power, that she understands what it truly means to put others before herself. Ella stepped onto the platform, and immediately felt that something was different. Wrong. The trial keepers looked troubled. Even Judith, standing with the council members, had gone pale. "What is the challenge?" Ella asked, though part of her didn't want to know. The keeper's ancient eyes held something that looked like pity. The trial of heart has one simple rule. Sacrifice what you love most to save what you love second most. Only then will you prove your heart is pure enough to lead. Ice flooded Ella's veins. "What does that mean?" Hector stepped forward, and his smile was the coldest thing she'd ever seen. "It means you have to choose, dear Luna. You can keep your mate bond with Ryan, keep your love, your connection, your happily ever after. Or you can keep your title as Luna Queen and serve the pack for the rest of your life. But you cannot have both. That's not," Ella turned to the keepers. "That's not a test of heart. That's an impossible choice. The bond can't be broken without killing one or both of us." "There are ways," the eldest keeper said quietly. "Ancient rituals that can sever even a fated mate bond. Painful beyond measure, but possible. The bond can be broken, and both parties can survive. They simply won't be connected anymore. Won't feel each other. Won't have that golden thread tying them together." Ella felt Ryan's presence through the bond, his absolute horror and rage mixing with her own shock. "This is madness," Ryan snarled, moving toward the platform. "The trial of heart has never demanded this. Never. In all our history. Because it's never been invoked for a human before," Hector interrupted smoothly. "The trial adapts to the candidate. And for a human who claims to love both her mate and her pack equally, the only way to test which love is greater is to make her choose between them." "I won't do it," Ryan said flatly. "I won't let you force this choice. I'll withdraw her from the trial. Forfeit the Luna title. We'll leave the kingdom if we have to." "No," Ella's voice cut through his declaration. "No running. Ella, if I forfeit, Hector wins. He gets what he wanted, proof that I'm not strong enough, not worthy enough, that humans don't belong in positions of power." She looked at Ryan, feeling tears burn her eyes. "I've come too far to quit now." "Then you understand the choice before you," Hector said, barely containing his satisfaction. "Keep the bond and lose the title, proving you care more about personal happiness than serving the pack. Or break the bond and keep the title, proving you're willing to sacrifice everything for duty." Through the bond, Ella felt Ryan's emotions in crystal clarity. Terror at losing her, rage at being powerless, and underneath it all a deep certainty that he would support whatever choice she made, that he loved her enough to let her go if that's what she needed. That realization broke something in her chest. "This is what you wanted from the beginning," Ella said to Hector, her voice shaking. "Not to test my heart, to break it, to prove that love is a weakness, that humans can't handle the weight of leadership, that I was never worthy of standing beside Ryan. Can you prove me wrong?" Hector challenged. "Can you make the sacrifice that true leadership demands? Or will you choose personal happiness over the good of thousands of wolves who need a strong Luna?" Ella looked out at the crowd. She saw wolves she'd judged in the trial of Wisdom Scott, who'd been given a second chance. The woman who'd stolen, now working to rebuild what she'd taken. The boy who'd killed his bully, now mentoring younger wolves. She saw Nicole Pearson, the alpha who'd questioned her but come to respect her. She saw Robert Ellison, who'd called her worthy. She saw Judith, her fierce protector and unlikely friend. She saw hundreds of wolves who'd watched her stand when standing was impossible. Who'd seen her refuse to break when breaking was the easy choice. Who'd started to believe that maybe, just maybe, a human could be their Luna after all. And she saw Ryan, the man who'd looked at her broken pieces and seen something beautiful. Who'd given her a kingdom when all she wanted was to be enough for one person. How could she choose? How could she not? "I need time," Ella said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to think." "You have until moonrise," the keeper said gently. "When the moon reaches its peak, you must make your choice." Ella found Ryan in the forest beyond the amphitheater, his back against an ancient oak, his face buried in his hands. She sat beside him without speaking, and for a long moment they just existed in the space between choice and consequence. "Don't do it," Ryan finally said, his voice wrecked. "Don't break the bond. Please, Ella. I can't lose you like that. I can't go back to existing without you." "And what about the pack?" Ella asked softly. "What about all those wolves who started to believe in me? If I choose us over them, I'm proving Hector right. I'm proving that love is a weakness, that I'm not strong enough to lead." "I don't care." Ryan turned to her, and his eyes were wet. "Let them think whatever they want. Let Hector win. Let the entire kingdom burn. I just want you. I just want us." Ella's heart shattered. "You don't mean that." "I do. I absolutely do. You're my mate, Ella. My soul. Without you, I'm just—" his voice broke. "I'm just a king in an empty castle. And I don't want to be that person again. I can't be that person again." "But you would be," Ella said, and she was crying now too. "If I choose the bond over the title, every day for the rest of your life, you'll look at me and wonder if you made the right choice. You'll watch your kingdom without a Luna and wonder if we were selfish. If we put our happiness above the good of thousands of wolves who needed us." "I don't care," Ryan repeated, but his voice was hollow. They both knew he was lying. Ella took his face in her hands, memorizing every detail: the sharp line of his jaw, the blue of his eyes, the way he looked at her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. "I love you," she said. "I love you more than I've ever loved anything or anyone. You took me when I was broken, and loved me back together. You gave me a kingdom when all I wanted was someone who wouldn't make me feel like I was too much. You showed me what real love looks like. And I will carry that gift for the rest of my life." "Ella, don't." "But love isn't just about holding on," Ella continued, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "Sometimes love is about letting go. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is sacrifice your own happiness for something bigger than yourself." Through the bond, she felt his anguish, his desperate attempt to change her mind, his absolute certainty that losing her would destroy him, and through that same bond, she poured every ounce of love she possessed into him. Every memory, every moment, every piece of her heart that belonged to him, she gave it all back in one final devastating gift. "I'm choosing the pack," she whispered. "I'm keeping the title and breaking the bond. Not because I don't love you, God, Ryan. I love you so much it's killing me. But because this is what it means to be Luna. This is the sacrifice that leadership demands." "No." Ryan's hands gripped her shoulders. "No, you can't. I won't let you." "You have to let me," Ella said, and she was smiling through her tears because she finally understood. "This is my choice. My sacrifice. And you have to respect it. Because respecting my choices is what you've done from the very beginning. It's what made me fall in love with you." She kissed him deep and desperate and final. She poured everything she felt into that kiss. Gratitude, love, grief, and goodbye. When she finally pulled away, Ryan was shaking. "I'll find a way," he said hoarsely. "I'll find a way to undo the ritual, to get you back, even if it takes 100 years. Maybe," Ella said softly. "Or maybe this is the price of being king and queen. Maybe love isn't always enough when you have kingdoms depending on you." She stood, brushing the tears from her cheeks. "But I'll never regret it. I'll never regret loving you, even if it destroys me." She walked back toward the amphitheater alone, leaving her heart in the forest with a man who looked at her like she'd just killed him. Maybe she had. The ritual was agony. The keepers drew ancient symbols on her skin in silver ink that burned like acid. They chanted in a language older than civilization. And slowly, painfully, the golden thread connecting her to Ryan began to fray. She felt him through the bond one last time, his love, his anguish, his absolute conviction that she was making a mistake. Then the thread snapped. And suddenly there was nothing, just emptiness where he used to be. A void where warmth and connection had lived. Ella collapsed to her knees, gasping, feeling like someone had carved out her chest and left nothing but a hollow space behind. The bond is broken, the eldest keeper said quietly. Luna Ella has made her sacrifice. She has chosen duty over desire, service over self, the pack over personal happiness. She has proven that her heart is strong enough to bear the weight of leadership even when that weight is unbearable. The keeper helped Ella to her feet, steadying her when her legs threatened to give out. Luna Ella has passed the trial of heart, the keeper announced to the crowd. She has completed all 3 trials. By the oldest laws of our people, she is worthy to stand as Luna, Queen of the Eastern Kingdoms. The amphitheater erupted in howls and applause, but Ella barely heard it. She looked for Ryan in the crowd, found him standing at the edge, his expression devastated and proud in equal measure. Their eyes met across the distance, and even without the bond, she felt it, the connection that went deeper than magic, the love that existed independent of destiny. Then Ryan turned and walked away, and Ella let him go, because that's what sacrifice meant. No. A voice rang out, cutting through the celebration. Hector strode onto the platform, his face twisted with rage. No. This isn't over. She passed the trials through luck and manipulation. She passed the trials through strength and sacrifice. Robert Ellison interrupted, standing from his seat. She has earned the title of Luna 10 times over. If you have issue with that, Hector Moody, then challenge me, because I stand with Luna Ella. As do I, Nicole Pearson said, rising. And I, said Jonathan Frost. One by one, alphas and council members stood in support of Ella, until the only wolf still seated was Hector. You've lost, Judith said quietly, appearing at Ella's side. Your trials proved nothing except that Luna Ella is stronger than any of us imagined, including you. Hector looked around at the united front standing against him, and something in his expression crumbled. Fine, he spat. Keep your human Luna. Keep your broken kingdom. I'm done with all of you. He stalked toward the exit, but Ella's voice stopped him. Hector. He turned, and she saw the hatred in his eyes. You were right about one thing, Ella said, her voice carrying across the amphitheater. Leadership does require sacrifice. It requires giving up what you want for what others need. But you were wrong about love being weakness. Breaking the bond with Ryan was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I did it because I loved him enough to let him go. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing a person can do. She took a step toward him. You wanted to prove I wasn't worthy. Instead, you proved that I am. That I understand what it means to be Luna, in ways you never could. So thank you, Hector. Thank you for making me prove myself. Now leave these territories and never return. For a moment, Hector looked like he might attack. Then he simply laughed a bitter, broken sound and left. Ella watched him go, feeling nothing but emptiness where triumph should have been. She'd won. She'd passed all 3 trials. She'd proven her worth to every wolf in the kingdom. But she'd lost Ryan. Lost the bond. Lost the one thing that had made her feel whole. Was it worth it? She didn't know. Maybe she never would. 3 days later, Ella stood in her chambers, the Luna's quarters, separate from the Alpha King's rooms, staring at the mark on her neck that no longer glowed with power, just a scar now, a reminder of what she'd given up. A knock sounded at her door. Come in, she said, not turning around. She expected Judith, maybe Robert, checking on her. Instead, Ryan's voice filled the room. I've been thinking. Ella spun around. He stood in her doorway, looking haggard and beautiful, his eyes shadowed but determined. Ryan, I've been thinking, he repeated, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. About sacrifice. About love. About what it means to be an Alpha King. And what it means to be your mate. The bond is broken, Ella said, her voice cracking. We can't. The bond is broken, Ryan agreed. But that doesn't change what I feel. It doesn't change the fact that I choose you, Ella. Not because destiny tied us together. Not because of some magical connection. But because you're you. Because you're brave and stubborn and you make impossible choices that break my heart and make me proud in equal measure. He crossed the room to stand in front of her. The bond is gone. Fine. We'll build something better. Something that exists because we choose it every single day, not because magic decided for us. But you're Alpha King, Ella whispered. And I'm Luna Queen. We have duties, responsibilities. And we'll fulfill them, Ryan said, side by side. As partners who chose each other despite everything that tried to keep us apart. The bond may be broken, but I'm not, and I refuse to let you be broken either. He cupped her face in his hands. And even without the golden thread connecting them, Ella felt it, the love that transcended magic, the connection that went deeper than destiny. I love you, Ryan said. Bonded or unbonded, fated or unfated, I choose you, Ella Mays. Every day for the rest of my life, I choose you. Do you choose me? The tears came then, not tears of grief, but of something that felt like hope. Yes, Ella breathed. God. Yes, I choose you. I will always choose you. When he kissed her, it wasn't like before, no electric jolt, no supernatural connection. It was better. It was real. It was a choice they both made freely, without destiny or magic or ancient laws forcing their hands. We'll find a way forward, Ryan murmured against her lips. Together. Together, Ella agreed. And for the first time since the ritual, the emptiness in her chest didn't feel quite so vast. Epilogue. Chosen. Not destined. 6 months later, the spring gathering brought wolves from all territories to celebrate the new season. The clearing was filled with music and laughter, cubs playing while their parents mingled, the air thick with contentment. Ella moved through the crowd, greeting pack members by name, settling minor disputes, ensuring everyone felt welcomed and valued. Being Luna was exhausting, work, politics, and diplomacy, and endless decisions that affected thousands of lives. But it was also deeply fulfilling in ways she'd never expected. Luna Ella, Scott called out, approaching with his head slightly bowed. He'd returned from his exile early, having proven himself rehabilitated. I wanted to thank you again for giving me a second chance. I'm working as a trainer now for new wolves struggling with control. I never would have found this purpose if you hadn't shown mercy. You earned it, Ella said warmly. Keep proving me right. She continued through the gathering, accepting thanks from the woman who'd stolen from the pack, now a valued member of the assistance program Ella had created. Receiving updates from the teenage boy who'd killed his bully, now a youth counselor who'd saved 3 young wolves from similar situations. Her choices during the trial of wisdom had rippled outward, changing lives in ways she was only beginning to understand. There you are, Ryan's voice came from behind her, and she turned to see him approaching with 2 glasses of wine. Taking a break is allowed, you know. Even for overachieving Luna Queens. Ella accepted the wine gratefully. Says the Alpha King who just spent 2 hours negotiating fishing rights between rival packs. Fair point. He smiled, and something in her chest, something that had nothing to do with mate bonds or magic, sang with joy. Dance with me? There's no music right now, so we'll make our own. He pulled her into his arms, and they swayed together under the stars. 2 people who'd chosen each other despite destiny, despite trials, despite everything that had tried to tear them apart. Any regrets? Ryan asked softly. Ella thought about the question seriously. She thought about the bond they'd lost, the sacrifice she'd made, the pain they'd both endured. No, she said finally. Because if I hadn't made that choice, I wouldn't have learned the most important lesson, which is that love isn't about holding on so tight you can't let go. It's about being willing to let go and choosing to come back together anyway. The bond we have now, the one we built from choice instead of destiny, it's stronger than anything magic could have created. Because it's ours. Because we fought for it. Because we chose it. Ryan pressed a kiss to her forehead. My wise, impossible Luna. You're stubborn, overachieving Luna, Ella corrected with a smile. Across the clearing, she spotted someone familiar. Bud Larkin stood at the edge of the gathering, having somehow gotten himself invited as a human guest by one of the younger wolves. Their eyes met, and Ella saw the recognition, the memory, the ghost of who they'd been to each other. Bud raised his glass slightly in acknowledgement, maybe an apology. Ella nodded back, not forgiving, not forgetting, but acknowledging that their story had led her here, to this moment, to this life, to this impossible, beautiful, hard-won happiness. Then she turned back to Ryan and let the past fade away like morning mist. "Come on," she said, taking his hand. "We have a kingdom to run. Together," Ryan said. "Always together," Ella agreed. And as they walked back toward their duties, their pack, their people, Ella thought about the girl who'd sat in a coffee shop 5 months ago, being told she was too much to love. That girl was gone. In her place stood Luna Queen Ella Mays, broken and rebuilt, tested and proven, loved and chosen. And she wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Dear viewers, as we close Ella's journey, I want to leave you with this thought. Have you ever had to choose between what your heart wanted and what you knew was right? Between love and duty? Between holding on and letting go? Ella chose sacrifice. She chose strength over comfort. But here's the real question. Was breaking the bond the right choice? Or did love find a way to be stronger than destiny? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if Ella's story moved you, hit that like button. Stories like this deserve to be shared. Until next time, remember, sometimes being too much for the wrong person means you're exactly enough for the right kingdom.